We work 20, 30 years, and then we retire. And so you're following the script all along the way. You know, you're turning the pages. And then you turn this next page, and there's nothing on it. It's a blank page. And you get to write that blank page. And I have, clients who are CEOs and have written many business plans, but they can't write a plan for themselves for their retirement.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why? Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today, I'm here with Larry Jacobson. He's a certified world-class speaking coach, retirement lifestyle coach, inspiring speaker, and award-winning author. Larry successfully transitioned from CEO to sailor while he achieved his dream of sailing around the world. So, Larry, as I mentioned, I'm going to let you tell that story. I think there's probably a lot of really interesting stuff there and things we can dive into. But first, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show today. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me and my audience. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So I guess I could, if you want me to start, I can give a little bit of history.
Tell us about yourself. That's the whole.
Yeah, okay. Well, it all started when I was 13 years old. Okay. No, don't worry. We're not going to go back. We are going to go back that far.
Sometimes that is where it started. That's okay. I don't mind that.
Well, when I was 13 is when I first learned to sail. I taught myself to sail in Long Beach down in Alamedas Bay on a tiny little boat that was found in the garbage. And then I kind of rebuilt it and painted it, and I was all excited. That was my super yacht. And then when I was 16 years old, I had a little bit bigger boat, and I sailed that boat to Catalina and back, and which was a crazy thing to do. But hey, I was 16, so And after that trip, I announced to my parents and my friends that I was going to sail around the world. And so then life happened. And so fast forward.
As it does, yeah.
Yeah, we fast forward. And after I went into business, and then after 20 years, I ended up as CEO of a company, and then sold the company for just enough money to tease me into thinking I could afford to sail around the world, and which turned out to be wrong. But anyway, so this was my chance, my one chance to make my lifelong dream come true. And so like I said, I quit the company or sold the company and took off my business suit and put on a sailor hat and bought a boat and spent the next 6 years sailing around the world. And
wow.
Yeah, and not many people achieve it. A lot of people depart with good intentions, but sailing around the world is incredibly difficult. Everything from mechanical breakdowns and weather issues, finances, crew issues, and it's hard to keep going. But it took 6 years, and I did it. When I got home. So that was my transition to retirement, right? But I was only 46 when I left, and it took 6 years. So when I got home, I still had a lot of years left, and I had no idea what I was going to do. That was the one thing I failed to plan. Was what are you going to do when you get home? Well, I don't know. I didn't think about that. I was so focused on getting the boat around the world because it is so challenging. And then I got home 6 years later, and I decided I'll write a book. So I wrote my first book, which became an Amazon #1. And here it is. It's The Boy Behind the Gate. And it's the story of my 6-year sailing trip around the world. And that did really well. It's still doing well. It's in Kindle, Audible, hardback, softback, you name it. But I still didn't know what I was going to do. So I got on the speaking circuit, and I did some speeches. I ended up doing 2 TED Talks, and also speaking twice at the in San Francisco, the Commonwealth Club. And so then I thought, okay, well, now what? Because I just didn't have any direction. I didn't have any
Yeah.
purpose. I didn't, when you've got that dream that you're going for, and then you achieve the dream, great, you did it. But now what? So
Yeah.
you've got to start all over again. So I transitioned again into being a coach. And the way I got there was one of my friends who was a CEO called me up one day and he says, "Hey, Larry, can you come in and help me out with something?" Yeah, sure. So I go into his office and I said, "Well, what do you need help with? Finances or marketing, sales?" He goes, "No, I know all that stuff. I know how to run the company. I'm the bloody CEO." And I said, "Okay, good. Then what?" And he says, "I want to know how you did it, how you got out, how you made that transition
Yeah.
from CEO to sailing bum."
Yeah.
And so I gave him a couple of thoughts. And then about a week later, I got a call from a friend of his who was a CEO. And same thing happened. And he asked me the same questions. So I thought, well, maybe I'm onto something. And that was in 2000, I think, 14. And so I launched Sail into Retirement, which is a online video course that teaches you. It basically takes you from I don't know what I'm going to do when I leave this job, all the way through to now I have a plan, and here's the
Yeah.
first steps that I need to take in that plan. And so then I had the program, the video program, and coaching, and then I just recently published another book called Your Ideal Retirement Workbook, and so that is basically the same information as the Sail into Retirement video course. And I continued to coach retirees. And then I got a little bit bored. And so I decided I would become a certified world class speaking coach because I have a lot of speaking experience. And it turns out I really love coaching speakers. And I see their progress like just jump when I'm coaching them, and I love it. So that's where I'm at right now, and that was a whole bunch of years in a short time.
Yeah, yeah, but a whole life story wrapped up in about 5 minutes. But I would say the I want to save the sail around the world part because I think that's just going to be like incredibly interesting to hear about and everything. But the whole point about you reaching that goal or reaching that dream that you have, and then not having really an exit plan for the exit plan, right? Like
Yeah,
it's like people can get into business, you own a business, maybe you have a great career and you manage to retire with some years left and just not sure what to do because so much of life is focused on getting through or to that, sort of dream retirement, if you will. And it certainly seems like a need that you're fulfilling by writing your books and having these coaching clients and programs and everything about sort of when you got back from your sail around the world. I mean, what was the what was that like? I mean, what was that transition? How did you decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do next? Or how did and maybe some of this is what you outline when you work with people as far as a coach, but just kind of where would someone start who finds themselves in that same position that you were?
yeah. Um, well, first of all, the one of the keys is to be open to opening doors, lots of doors, even if you
Yeah.
don't think it's somebody that you might be interested in. We explore all the different possibilities for someone. So, in a transition, there's three stages. There's the ending, which is actually the beginning, right? But something has to end. So the
Yeah.
sailing trip ended, for example. Okay, well, now I find myself in the middle area and I'm just trying out new different things. So I was writing, and that was my first book. I hadn't written a book before. And then I was speaking, and I had done some speaking, but I decided that I was going to become really good at it. And so I did training with some speaking coaches, um, and so I was just trying a lot of different areas. But truly, I felt like a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. I mean, I was lost, and only because I took that phone call from my friend, the CEO, who asked me if I could give him some ideas. Then that sparked the other one, and then that sparked creating the sail into a retirement course. So what I did is I stopped for a year and just kind of re-engineered or reverse engineered all the thoughts and actions that I had taken to go from CEO to sailor. And then I started documenting it, and then I started writing about it, and then I decided to make it into a video course. And the first thing that I ask someone is, when you close your eyes, what do you see? Do you see a future for yourself? Where do you see that future? And don't just look at it from outside in, but actually put yourself in the picture. Like, do you see yourself being a teacher? Can you see yourself standing in front of the class? Or do you see yourself being on a board of directors, or helping, volunteering, or teaching, or mentoring, or whatever it is that I try to combine someone's history with, and what they're good at, and what they're knowledgeable at, and what they're wise at, and combine that with new ideas. What else can you do with that information that you have from your work career? The biggest challenge is to getting people to let go of their identity. So someone who's
Yeah.
a CEO probably knows how to be a CEO, and they probably came up through the ranks. They know marketing and sales and finance as well. But to get them to do something different, or an attorney, to get them to do something different, they work 12, 14 hours every day, and all of a sudden you're asking them, well, now go tend your roses. That is a big challenge for a lot of people. So they try to
Yeah.
hang on to that identity. I'm an attorney, and I have to get them to let go of that identity and embrace a new identity. And that's what I had to do for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that's uh, a very hard sort of position to be in life to figure that, to go from, I was this thing. I've heard this quote before, but says that athletes die twice, and essentially, the meaning that the first time they die is when they can't play that sport anymore. And I think that's realistically any high achiever that develops that identity that you speak of in whatever it is, sports,
Yes.
business, who cares what the role is, but you have that, sort of the identity formation, and then it's like, well, when that can't be a thing anymore, what am I going to do with myself? And it does involve, like, truly sort of creating that new identity for yourself, at least in your own eyes. However that translates to others, but is one thing. But like, at least even in your own mind, shifting, I'm a CEO to I'm a speaker and an author, shifting from, I'm a professional athlete to now I'm going to own business, whatever the case may be. Like,
Right.
people do these things. And I do you since you've been through it, and you coach people, do you suggest this is something that folks look at in advance, meaning, like, don't wait until you already
Right.
sold the company, retired, whatever it is, to try and start to figure this stuff out? Do you suggest that people start, making a plan earlier, meeting with yourself, a coach like yourself, and starting to talk over what's the new identity going to look like? How do you suggest people go about, maybe solving some of that,
Sure.
you know, shift?
Um, I do suggest that people think about it sooner rather than later. And my book, the Your Ideal Retirement Workbook, is a good way to get started in that because it has lots of questions and then blank spaces for you to put in, and then you can put it away on your shelf. But it's a living document. You can change it too. You can change your ideas. You can tear it up and throw it away and start all over again if you want.
Yeah.
Um, and I do recommend that people come to me sooner. Even though I recommend it, they don't do it necessarily. I find that people will come to me maybe a year before retirement, but most of my clients come to me about a year after they've stopped work, and they come to me and they go, "Help!
Yeah.
I'm about to, I'm going to, shoot myself. I don't know what to do all day. I wake up, after the first week or two of, yay, I don't have to get up early. That
Right.
becomes kind of boring. It's like now it's 10:30 in the morning, and well, what have I done except have a cup of coffee and fix a dishwasher?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so and without that purpose and that the fulfillment that comes from your career, even if you didn't love your job, you still got purpose out of it, and you still had a social connections out of that career. And when you leave that career, pretty much your social connections disappear. A lot of them, and so does your purpose, and then therefore your fulfillment. And it's since we're living so much longer than the previous generations. When you retire at 65, chances are you've got another 20 years. That's a
Right.
long time to play golf every day.
Yeah. 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 It's and that I was gonna it's an interesting thing when you bring up the time piece of it, because yeah, even if you work in whatever capacity to, sort of that traditional retirement age, you might work until you're 65 or 70. You're still going to have hopefully 20 years
Yeah.
of time after that. And in your instance, I mean, you left corporate world much earlier than most,
Yes.
to be able to do that in your 40s. And so I think, but regardless of that, right, like even if you retire early, you've probably had that identity of that role for decades. And it's
Yes.
like getting shifting that into something else for the next decades, or how, it doesn't even have to be, you don't have to pick one thing and just go to that and that's the rest of life. Like, but starting to be, you mentioned the open, being open to something different, whether that is, and most people, um, as much as we might think in our minds that being off all the time and sort of being in control of our own day and all of that, that's not easy to do. Like even retirement's one example of that, but so is like going into entrepreneurship or being a business owner. Like you don't necessarily, when you don't have someone telling you this is what your day looks like, you got to figure that out.
That's
And
right.
it can be pretty daunting to figure that out in whatever, capacity that is. um,
Yeah, I like to say that we follow a script our whole life.
yeah.
From we go elementary school and junior high and high school, and then college or military or an academy or an apprenticeship or something. And then we work 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
and then we retire. And so you're following the script all along the way. You're
Yeah.
turning the pages. And then you turn this next page and there's nothing on it. It's a blank page. And
Yeah.
you get to write that blank page. And I have, clients who are CEOs and have written many business plans, but they can't write a plan for themselves for their retirement. So
Yeah.
I ask a lot of questions. I dig deep into, what are what are their interests? What's their knowledge? What wisdom do they have that they want to pass on? And it's a challenge because they go through. We have to talk about priorities. What are your priorities? What is your vision? What do you see of this? And then I have to help people break that down, the vision, into smaller goals,
Hmm.
because like a vision, like for example, to sail around the world. If you said you're going to sail around the world, where do you start? what knowledge do you
Right.
need? What wisdom do you need? What are all the different aspects of it? Do you know how to read weather maps? Do you know? I mean, from A to Z, there's a whole lot to learn, um, and to make it reachable, I break it down into smaller goals. Okay, first thing, I need a crew. I know I'm going to need a crew. I know I'm going to need a boat. I should probably know something about diesel engines. Even though my father begged me to take car mechanics in high school, and I said no. And now I'm kicking myself. I had to learn the hard way at sea.
Yeah, would it come in handy in that instance?
Yeah. But the different aspects that we go through are to make sure that it's all covered, or what's your vision, and what are your, let's break that down into goals, and what are your priorities. And then fear is a big issue, because a lot of people fear going down the wrong path. What if they choose the wrong path? That's okay. You can do something else. And
Right.
in fact, one of the reasons I got into being a speaking coach is that most small businesses today are started by people 50 and over. And a lot of those people have never had the experience of public speaking, but they need it for their new business. And
Yeah.
so I'm basically able now to combine my speaking coaching with retirement coaching, and it meshes into something very nice.
Yeah. And you mentioned I'm forgetting exactly how you said it much more eloquently than I'm going to probably, but you mentioned that sort of like knowledge or experience transfer. Like you said, what do you want to pass on to, from your experiences? And it really, when you said that, it made me think the like writing and speaking could be such a valuable resource for people that are in that like retirement age group, or that,
Oh,
because they've seen so much of life already that needs to be shared, or would be beneficial to people, being shared. And so that's actually, probably a really good space for retirees to be in, to find some ways to, as an outlet for themselves, but also just, to help the next generations of us that are want to learn from those experiences, and sort of take
absolutely.
whatever we can.
Absolutely. And I've probably mentioned knowledge and wisdom. And people often ask me, what's the difference? What's the difference between knowledge and wisdom? And I'll give your audience a brief that they'll never forget now when it comes to that. So knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like knowledge all grown up. It's the experience and that we have, and it's uh, someone my age. I mean, I'm coaching entrepreneurs who are in their 40s and or even their 30s, and I also do speaking coaching for a group called Bizworld, where the kids are 18, 19, 20. And just having that experience, they eat it up. They love the wisdom part.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's to I'm lucky enough to, speak with people of all generations on this podcast throughout, and it's, for me, um, I just always feel like I'm learning just being around someone like yourself. Like, I'm learning just by hearing you speak about life in the way that you do, and I think, like, being able to listen and receive that type of wisdom, as you said, is like, that's a skill that the young generation, for your own benefit, you should learn it, because it's very valuable to take from, people that have experienced a lot of life. So it's kind of, something that I think is a mutually beneficial relationship in that regard.
Absolutely, it is, it's I love, and so do all of my clients love passing on wisdom to the next generation. And it's really important. I think a
Yeah.
lot of companies discovered the term the wisdom walkout during COVID, when
Hmm.
everybody decided to leave. It's like, wait a minute, who knows where the light switch is? Or
Yeah.
even, I mean, let alone who knows our business or understands, deep consultative sales and
Yeah.
um, so there's a lot to pass on, and it gives great satisfaction and purpose to people in my generation to be able to pass that on. And so
Hmm.
I always am looking for different ways that I can get people involved in passing on their knowledge and wisdom. And yeah, so it's one of the reasons I brought out my book, is that it's at $20, anybody can afford it. And so
Right.
anybody can get my coaching wisdom in that book.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
It like I said, such a great piece of resource, and I feel like that was sort of a perfect segue in that I always ask every guest, what is their why, and you just brought up something that strikes me as it could very well tie into your why and may not be the complete thing, but what is your why, Larry? What I mean, you've done so much, you've experienced so much. What is your why? At this point.
Yeah, my why is pretty simple. On Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's the second to the top, which is self gratification, and where you've achieved everything that you feel that you can achieve. And I've reached that, and that was from sailing around the world and making that incredible accomplishment come true. And then when I got home, I was still looking for something to do and for something more satisfying for me. And then I discovered self actualization is the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And self actualization came to me not from sailing around the world and achieving something for me, but it came to me from untying somebody else's dock lines and pushing them out, so to speak, metaphorically,
Yeah.
and helping them move on to the next stage of their lives. And that could be a young entrepreneur where I'm going to help them get their business launched. It could be an elderpreneur, or someone who is of the next generation, who wants to pass it on. And so I just want to help people through those transitions and help them achieve their dreams and help them discover their dreams. A lot of people don't know what it is they want to do at all when they retire. That's a
Yeah.
big issue. So we go through
Yeah.
this whole quiz, this passion quiz and everything, to find out their why. And then I help them to make that happen. And that's where I get my
Yeah.
satisfaction.
That's amazing. Amazing. Um, it's time to talk about the trip around the world. I think
Ah,
that's the thing that I mean. So I will I don't know how to sail. I don't know anything about it. So I won't even try to ask technical questions about it. However, the first thing that struck me, sort of as you were telling the story, that the one thing that shocked me is you said 6 years, and so
yeah.
I I don't know that I knew, like, I don't even know that in my mind I had an idea of, I think it should take X number of time to sail around the world, but 6 years seemed long, but maybe it's short. I really have no idea. So I'm interested. I mean, I assume you don't stay on the boat the whole time. Like, there's got to be stops and things like that. Like, how, even just, I don't know, high level, tell us about the journey. It's
Yeah.
just fascinating.
Okay. Um, sure. Well, first of all, the scariest moment of my life was sailing out under the Golden Gate Bridge and turning south. I mean, it
Yeah.
was just,
Oh, really?
I did not have the experience necessary to sail around the world. I had some sailing experience. I had crossed the Pacific as a crew member when I was in college, but that was that. And I had grown up sailing in Southern California, but that was just like local sailing. Uh, the longest passage that we had, which was within a few months of departing San Francisco, is we sailed down to Puerto Vallarta, and in Mexico. And then from there is when we headed out south to the Marquesas Islands. That was 2,750 miles. And I didn't even know how to navigate barely at that point. I did, but not very well. And I
Yeah.
certainly didn't know how to read weather maps like I do now. And so it's the big challenges were mechanical breakdowns would be the number one. And if when you read my book, you'll see what I'm talking about is that everything on the boat breaks. Everything. I don't think there's a system, and we had installed all new systems and wiring and computers and cabling and everything, and it still all breaks down because of the salt water and the salt air corrodes
Okay.
everything. So sailing around the world, this we like to say is 30 days of sheer boredom followed by 30 minutes of sheer terror. So anyway, but we made it across the Pacific Ocean, and you kind of follow the weather. You're dictated by the weather. So there's hurricane season in the South Pacific. When that happens, you have to sail south or north. So we chose to sail
Okay.
south to New Zealand to get out of it. Stayed in New Zealand for almost a year, and living on the boat in the marina, and then sailed back up to the South Pacific to do Fiji and Vanuatu, and then over to Australia, and then up through Indonesia and Thailand and Singapore and that area. And then we ended up anchored right in front of Patong Beach um, in Phuket, Thailand. And then, if you
Okay.
remember, in 2004, that's where the tsunami hit. And we were so incredibly fortunate because we had planned on being anchored right in front of this beach that the night of uh, Christmas, because they had a big Christmas party there every year. Well, we had a change of plans about 2 weeks before that. We decided to fly back to the United States for the holidays, see friends and family, and haul the boat up out of the water into a boatyard. And and then when we did that, when we left a few days later, and then the tsunami hit. And had we been anchored at that beach, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. So there was some really close calls like that,
Yeah.
that, I don't know whether it's fate or what. Um, and then you just go over the top of Australia. I remember asking an Australian, how do you get to Darwin? And he says, oh, that's easy, mate. You just sail up to the top, hang a left. It'll be the first big city on your left. And it's like he's just talking about 2,000 miles worth of sailing.
Right.
So, yeah.
Simple. Simple. That.
And then we went across the Indian Ocean and up through Pirate Alley and then into the Red Sea. And that was really, really scary. And we had in a storm in the Red Sea the winds were blowing 60 knots sustained. From high winds from Southern California fires now, but 60 knots is nearly 70 miles an hour. And that's really strong on land. When you're
Yeah.
at sea, what it does is it builds up the waves to be incredibly big and steep. We had 30-foot seas that we were in the Red Sea, and it went for about 36 hours. This whole storm until we were able to find a place to tuck into. And so we had some really scary moments, and but we decided to make it all the way around. Was with a friend of mine, and we made it all the way around, which is, they say, about 60 people a year actually complete a circumnavigation, and I think that's actually dropped a bit now. On the other hand, the new navigation systems have allowed less experienced people to get out there. And so
Hmm.
we're seeing a lot more Coast Guard rescues now because of that.
Oh no.
So they know how to
Okay.
navigate, but they don't have any experience at being at sea. But it was the most amazing thing I've ever done in my life. I see my life as pre-sailing and post-sailing, and
Sure.
launched me into speaking, into coaching, and I didn't have any idea I was going to be launched into those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, it's It is amazing. I'm sure it is incredibly scary too. I don't even have I don't know,
A way
like
to
a
compare it.
right. I don't have like a comparison
Yeah. Well, let me put it this
experience.
way: 30-foot waves, seas are 3 stories.
Yeah, yeah,
So, and these waves were coming fast in the Red Sea, like every 3 seconds, just another one, and we were just pounding into these for the direction we had to go. It's all spelled out in the book. You can read it. I'll make sure you get one.
yeah,
And it's you learn to deal with fear. My first TED talk was called "Passion Trumps Fear." Now, I didn't know not to use that word at that time, but um, that how passion is it overpowers fear, and I just was really wanted to make this happen and to achieve this goal, and I wasn't going to get stopped by weather or anything, and it just was very, very difficult to do, challenging, um, but without challenge, there's not achievement.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's incredible. I don't. Yeah, I'll definitely need to read that book because I just I could ask like a million questions, but it'd just be recounting, recounting or recapping your entire trip. But I mean, it is amazing. It's your life experiences and story are pretty incredible and a great example of people like just it doesn't matter. Like you can shift gears, you can find a new identity, you can, and it's not you're not starting over. You're starting from experience, and so it's just kind of like people can hopefully use this as a motivator and an example of don't be scared if you want to change gears, shift your identity a little bit. I think it can be a pretty big scary step to take, but achievable. Larry, when people hear this and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, there's the best way would be probably email me, and that is Larry at LarryJacobson.com.
Okay. Okay.
And it's spelled
Uh,
Son, Jacobson.
okay. And
Larry at
we'll put it in the show notes
LarryJacobson.com.
too.
Yeah. And then I have, there's 2 other sites that they might want to look at besides LarryJacobson.com. And one is called Own the Stage. So it's ownthestage.org, and that's my speaking coaching.
Hmm.
And then there's another site they want to look at is called Buoy Training, Buoy, Buoy training.com. And that has my Sail into Retirement video course, and also another course that a lot of your listeners might be interested in called Navigating Entrepreneurship. And it's, I think it's, I don't know, it's very inexpensive. I think we have it at $35 or something like that now. Just want to get it into the hands of people. And it basically it flattens out the entrepreneurial roller coaster, and which I'm sure you're very well aware of. And
It's a very good descriptor of what being an
yes,
entrepreneur is like. Yeah.
yes. Well, entrepreneurs are the only people who will work 100 hours a week for themselves, so they don't have to work 40 hours for somebody else,
Yeah. Yep.
right?
That's exactly it.
I'm sure you know what that is as well.
Yeah.
So those are the sites I think that would be interesting for them. My book is on Amazon and everywhere else. The sailing book is The Boy Behind the Gate, and the retirement book is Your Ideal Retirement Workbook. In fact, if you go to youridealretirementworkbook.com, there's a whole landing page about that book and everything, the videos. And there's also a 30-minute video of my sailing trip around the world, and it's on the site and the homepage of LarryJacobson.com. So that's your first homework, Jason, is to watch that, because that's
Yeah.
really
I'll
fun.
have to watch the video and see. Hopefully, those
Yeah.
30-foot waves are in there. I mean,
No,
just
they're
amazing. I'm
not,
sure you
because
didn't
we
stop
didn't
to take
have time.
video then.
We
Yeah.
didn't have time. It's like,
No,
oh, good, go grab the camera so we can take these
right.
pictures.
Somebody get the camera while we're getting tossed around in this boat. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
I that makes total sense. Well, I mean, just amazing story, Larry. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all this with the listeners. We'll get all of that information in the show notes too, so they can connect with you and
Great.
get your book and your courses and all of that. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time out today. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm really glad to be here.
Awesome. And folks listening, make sure you connect with Larry, and please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get more great guests. And thank you all for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?